Hello and welcome to episode 54 of the Foundry Roundtable, the podcast exclusively covering the Foundry for Star Trek Online. I'm your tame Foundry author, Jorgen1701, or at least I'm tame before 8 p.m. With me are three officers who may or may not be Undine infiltrators. We'll decide which one by the end of the show. Markhawkman, Greendragoon, and Hippiejohn.
Hey.
I'll spoil the surprise. I'm the infiltrator.
Whoa! I wasn't sure which one.
But maybe that's misdirection.
That's easy.
Yeah, but I'm a good Undine. I only sort of kind of want to take you over.
Only sort of, kind of.
Oh, you know. We'll work it out.
And actually, it is a momentous occasion because it is at almost Hippiejohn's birthday. So, happy birthday, Hippiejohn.
Thanks, guys.
Yay.
Happy birthday.
Since you're a hippie, I assume you're from the 60s, so you must be about, I don't know, like 78 by now.
No, I'm from I am literally from just after the 60s. The twins that would have been born before me had my mother not, miscarried them or whatever. It would have been born in 1969, so they would have been Summer of Love children.
Ah.
So, I came around 2 years later.
Just in time for Star Wars?
No, I was 6 when Star Wars came out. I didn't want to see it.
So we're doing a weekend edition this time, which gives us a chance to bring in folks who would not be able to join us during our normal Wednesday time slot. So everybody please welcome Rouge Enterprise.
Hey, I made it this time. I love it when you guys do weekend shows. I can actually go and or watch.
Yay!
So it's nice.
Because he works late, usually later than our time slot.
Yes.
The funny thing is, if I remember correctly, the Wednesday time slot was decided just because.
And it really was decided just because. I think it was decided because it was a day no other podcast was doing stuff.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of that. There was, for my schedule, I have to do a lot of evening stuff. And Wednesday is usually the day that nothing else is scheduled. Except for this week. Which is the other reason that we were doing a weekend show. So in any case, we got lots and lots of news. Season 9, of course, was released on Tuesday. With that comes the usual Foundry downtime, which we talked a lot about last time. The auto-republish of missions seems to be going very quickly. There is one problem, which is that some of the missions are not automatically moving to their new doors on Earth Space Dock, the ones that started there before. Specifically, the console, which for lack of a better term, we will call the grinder console, the one that was outside the transporter room, should be, all those missions should have moved down to the console in the conference room, but they're not for some reason. And
Tuberboy came in to basically say that he did a little testing, and it looks like a manual republish will fix this problem. So authors who have doors on Earth Space Dock, once editing is turned back on, go ahead and go in there and reconnect your door, make sure everything's working, and republish. Easy enough fix, and something that authors won't have to worry on moving forward, but a little extra step that you'll need to do.
Now Cryptic Frost did say that they are doing a second republish. They started it, and it should be done by Tuesday. That was his tentative ETA. And I think he said the idea was to see if that would fix it as well.
Okay.
But sometimes, we've run into some things where a manual republish is what's required. That thing with the reach markers, minimap not showing where the reach markers actually are, that needed a manual republish to fix. So, we may end up all having to do that, because I've also got one that starts on ESD that I told you about, a different door. I went into the Tribble editor, and it was set to something called entry door, which appeared to be nowhere on the map. Taco said on the forums that he has hooked that up to a door in the bridge officer office, which is below Admiral Quinn's office, opposite the conference room. But that build has not made it live yet. I don't know if that will require a manual republish of my mission. I don't know. For myself, I was probably going to pick a different door anyway, so no big deal.
Yeah, and I'm kind of I mean, in the grand scheme of seasonal updates, this one has been remarkably bug light for a Foundry downtime.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's a lot of. I'm almost kind of secretly hoping that we'll actually get in sooner than we would typically have in the past.
Because we can't actually hope for that because that would jinx it.
Oh, I mean, it'll probably take
So
longer.
we can secretly hope.
8 weeks, nine minimum.
So I keep telling people, expect 3 weeks. That way you'll be pleasantly surprised if it's less.
No, I mean, I don't think I've ever gotten my mission back online this quickly before.
I've got 2 of mine back online, so 2 out of 3 is pretty good.
Yeah, I've pretty much given up trying to predict how or in which order missions are republished.
But it does seem to be going faster this time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we will hope secretly. Let's see. The other news was something I just actually discovered yesterday. The Investigate Officer Report mission has returned.
Really?
This is a repeatable quest, which is in your mission. If you open your mission window, go to Available, and scroll down, you'll see one called Investigate Officer Reports, or something similar to that. Repeatable quest gives you 1,984 skill points, 1,732 expertise, and 960 dilithium for completing a qualified Foundry mission. What I don't know is the cooldown. Yeah.
I would imagine it's daily.
Well, it just says repeatable. So we're not sure. Kirkvat was going to go test what the cooldown is. Hopefully we hear back from him on that. He just did like an hour ago.
No, this is actually a very interesting development because, I mean, we've been talking about in the past about the need for kind of a Foundry rep, NPC, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of one of those key points that would be needed for such a rep.
Mm-hmm. Currently, it is given by an NPC.
It says something different to me that makes me really, really happy. Actually, it's a step. I wish they hadn't included dilithium. I haven't looked at the mission myself, so I don't know. But I wish they hadn't included dilithium in it, because if it had just been a repeatable skill points mission that gives you about 2,000 skill points, that would have made any Foundry mission you play that's qualified give you approximately the same amount, just a little bit less than the sector patrol missions, like where you go to the planet and go do a mission on a planet for a couple thousand, the ones that Sulu gives you. And
I think it's about comparable with like replaying a story mission as well.
Yeah, because one thing that is now the thing that I want more than anything to see the Foundry move toward is being a method of gameplay by which people can level.
Yeah, but I mean, in that scenario, though, you're going to want the skill point grant to be on the mission themselves versus a repeatable wrapper, just because you don't want to have to try and level by playing one Foundry mission a day. You want to be able to play multiple missions a day.
I don't think it's daily. I'm going to guess it's maybe hourly. The question is, what happened to the old hourly bonus, like for Spotlight missions? Is that still going to be there, or what?
Has it moved? I mean,
I don't know.
Let me go.
One thing I noticed when I was doing my testing was that it will actually give you dilithium for playing your own mission.
Here's a thought. Here's a thought. The wrapper, if it gives 960 and it's on a cooldown of 30 minutes or an hour, and they make it so that there's no way to, it's on a cooldown, you can't do it again. It doesn't matter whether you play an exploit mission or whether you play a mission that actually, or a grinder mission, not an exploit. It doesn't matter whether you play a grinder or a story mission that takes approximately that long. you're getting 960 dilithium. That would be a fairly, it's not quite as good a reward as doing an STF in like 15 minutes, right? But it's still, if it's on every 30 minutes or it's on every hour, you can pick up your dilithium reward by doing, and why not a few thousand well by doing Foundry missions. I think this might be a good
And of
development.
course it'll be double during the dilithium bonus weekend, which is coming up next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Because I keep hearing people say about nerfs to dilithium from STFs, and what I think they mean is
They're right. They're right.
Only one of the whatever they're called, the implant things, drops now per STF instead of a possibility of 6 or 11. And people were using those to get dilithium through a project.
The funny thing about that one, though, is that getting 6 or 11 didn't happen very often.
It didn't happen very
often.
often.
Never when I wanted it to. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Right. But the fact that it did happen does mean that you're only getting one, because what they're saying is it used to be you would get one guaranteed and you had a chance of getting more.
Hey guys.
Now you just get one.
It looks like the investigate offers or reports is on a half-hour cooldown.
Half-hour cooldown.
Sweet. I like it.
Which matches the STF cooldown.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm guessing this is just enough.
So you could almost say that the Foundry is now on par with the dilithium that you can get out of STFs.
Almost. That's a really great thing. So yeah, thank you for putting that back in there, Cryptic.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about this.
Thank you for not saying anything about it as well.
Once again,
things Foundry are not in the patch notes. For life of me, I don't know why.
This is one of those, like, this is that a symptom of how low a priority the Foundry actually is? Is that why we don't see that? This is
or it's just somebody right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing. Cold Snap, who makes the patch notes, is maybe not getting a note from somebody that this has been done.
And it doesn't make any sense.
In my experience, as someone who's been here since Season 3, the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing is normal for patch notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe we do have, maybe there is like a secret Foundry cabal of developers who secretly work on minute little changes where they can and don't tell anybody.
Well, we can only speculate, of course.
I'm kidding, of course. Disclaimer: the Foundry Cabal does not actually exist in any form. That isn't just a fun.
These are not the Sith you are looking for.
So let's see. I mean, beyond all that, we just all been plowing through Season 9 stuff. I'm sure everybody. I know I've been playing it pretty heavily, working on the Undine Counter Command rep on one character, and then probably going to sponsor a couple others.
Yeah, I'm definitely.
And a lot of this weekend is going to be trying to figure out how to get good kit modules for everybody. I got 16 characters. That's a lot of people to get through.
Oh, I'm sure you'll find a systematic approach to it.
I do like a good systematic approach.
So you and your 16 characters, Season 9 made me decide that I'm not going to go through and delete all of the characters that I'm not going to be playing, because I actually really like them all the ones that I've made this time. But I am really literally going to play like 2 or 3 characters from here on out. There's just, to me, no reason to keep pushing all of these characters up to level 50. Play the content that I enjoy with them, and it's actually kind of fun to have characters at those lower levels too.
And
sure.
I've kind of found that my characters have phases. I mean, I've got, at most, I'll usually have just one that I'm actively playing, but each one of them there'll be like a period in which I'm into a certain character, and then another period where I'm into another character, and during that time I'll work on advancing that particular character. But yeah, I'm not going to try to get everybody up at the same time. And there's no
And
reason to.
I'm kind of the same way about that. I mean, I do not mind at all if one or two or five characters sit there for a month and I never log in and play them. That doesn't bother me. They're not hurting me anything by not being
By just
logged in
sitting
on.
there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
all of my characters got to BA by doing DOF missions, so you know.
Well, and somebody asked me, when I started my 16 characters, like, my God, man, why do you have so many damn characters? And I'm like, the ones I've been making lately are I get some sort of RP thing going with them. Like, I decided I wanted a Cardassian Galler class. I thought I had the money for it. Turned out they were a lot more expensive than I thought. So I was just like, yeah, you know what? I'll just use this money to buy a whole bunch of keys and open Cardassian lockboxes because they've been dropping again.
And you got
And
one,
lo
didn't
and
you?
behold, I got one.
Nice.
So I made a new character for that and made it all Cardassian crew.
How much are
I
they
make
going
up
for?
like a storyline. Oh, it was like 275 or 250, something like
I'm
that.
surprised.
Yeah, and
not
I'm the same
surprised.
way. I mean, if I get a good story behind my
And I actually got mine for half that. So as it turned out,
I mean, we all know what I think of lockbox ships, and if there's a story, like, I mean, your character, what is it, Tiana, right? Tiana
Yeah.
has my lockbox ship that I just, gave you for half price, basically, or whatever, because I didn't care. It's just a ship, and I had no story for it, and you did.
Yeah,
I
and I
prefer to,
See, I mean, that's what
fly the
I like
Corvette.
doing is making those stories for my own characters and making sort of
Yeah.
RP reasons like why these guys are here. To me, that's sort of like a natural extension of user generated content. I like to bring my imagination to this game
yeah.
Yeah.
and use it.
And
Well, I mean, I've talked about the various things I've come up with for characters, so
Mm.
I mean, like the guy I'm playing as right now is basically a Terminator. So hey,
And I like to bring in a lot of my the characters I've made for Foundry missions as player characters.
Miranda here's the
Even
first
if I've
one I
killed
did
them
that
off.
with. Miranda here's the first one I've done that with, and I've actually gotten people to play the mission by some I think it was an STF or an Azure Nebula. At some point, some random player was like, "Your ship looks ridiculous," and I was like, "That's because I'm a cartoon character. You should go play my cartoons." And then I got a review from them. I was like, "Right on."
Awesome.
So,
That's perfect.
and the ship does look ridiculous. They weren't wrong.
but it's supposed to.
So, Dragoon, you had some more things for the Frost report.
Yeah, I'll do that, and then we also got to talk about the interview.
Yes.
So basically, with the new season comes the new wave of bugs, which I mentioned before has actually been very light. The biggest of which, of course, has been the mission doors on ESD not connecting properly. But like I said, we've kind of covered that one. A couple of others have kind of been in the forefront. First off, there was a report of, and this is a little specific, but a group of Romulan civilians apparently can no longer lie down or lie down on their face. The animation seems to be not
that
working.
was a strange one. He said he was investigating and found that he could not
Yeah.
make them animate in that way.
And this isn't
Or
the
they,
first
or they
time
did
that
it wrong.
yeah, this isn't the first time that we've had like animations break. And although this is the first instance I've heard of it being specific to or specific NPCs, I find is kind of interesting. The other thing that's been kind of, and this kind of just came to the top of the forums like Friday, and that is a little bit of new movement on an old bug. And this is a bug where basically when you're playing a founder mission and you are on the ground and the dialogue calls for one of your space boffs or one of your boffs that are still on the ship, it will instead display a generic random boff. And this has been happening for like a year now. And but recently it kind of was kind of brought up again, but then some info started to come out about some of the causes behind it, and it was actually through this forum thread tracked it down to a specifically being caused by cryptic missions that like artificially reduce the number of boffs you bring along on an away team. Apparently, when this happens, it messes up the order of the bridge officer list, and so suddenly you'll have bridge officers that aren't referenced properly. And what happens is then a founder mission attempts to call for one of these bridge officers from your list, gets some kind of an error behind the scenes, I'm assuming, and then when they can't get your proper buffs, it shows the generic ones. So, in addition to all of this, we actually have a workaround that can at least temporarily fix this problem and get your buffs referenced properly again. Basically, it involves assigning each of your bridge officers to a bridge officer slot, like, say, a shuttle. And as you assign each of one, you can actually see the list rearranging itself. And once you've gone through all of them, your bridge officers will be back in their proper order, and this will actually fix the problem, and your bridge officers will appear properly in the dialog boxes. Now, unfortunately, as soon as you go down to, say, the something like the Dyson ground battle zone, it'll break again. But it does kind of provide at least a temporary workaround, and at the same time, it also gives new information to how the that'll hopefully lead to programmers being able to fix it. I know, I think I've said it before that one of the most difficult things in QA is basically tracking down the root cause of a bug, and a huge amount of programmer time can be required in order to fix down an errant bug if the obvious cause isn't obvious.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Kirk Fed is over in the Starbase UGC chat room. He was testing a mission with the wrapper, and he said he did get the regular automatic reward when he finished the mission, plus the what he got from the turn-in of the wrapper quest. So for one story mission, he got 6,000 XP, 2,000 skill points, and 2,460 dilithium.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know sometimes players think this, but the devs do not hate the Foundry, and in fact, they want the Foundry to succeed as much as we do. It's just
Well, I've never thought they hated it.
no.
I just always thought their priorities were elsewhere. I mean, I actually came up with a good analogy earlier this week. Okay, so my route to work takes me down this little street that is really not heavily traveled at all, and for the longest time, there's been a huge pothole there. And it's really annoying. You have to drive around it because this one is deep enough. You do not want to go through it. But I figured, okay, this road does not get a lot of traffic. Of course, they're not going to prioritize fixing that. They're going to, the city crews are going to have their work cut out elsewhere. And then, just this last week, they fixed it. And I was like, oh, awesome. That was cool. I did not expect you to do that, but awesome. So, I mean, it seems like the Foundry is a little like that. It's the street that doesn't get a lot of traffic, has some potholes. They might get to it eventually, but they got to put their priorities elsewhere because most of the players are elsewhere. As much as somebody who drives down that every day might want them to fix that.
Well,
Really bad.
another analogy I like to use is the list of chores analogy. Obviously, some chores are more important than each other and get stuck at the top of the list. But the things that aren't stuck at the top of the list because they're extra important, might take a while to get around to those.
So for me, it's just a really simple thought in my mind, and that is when they're making updates, I listen to them, say that they're making the updates where the people are, where people are spending money. This makes me happy that what they're doing will make the people who are spending money, the most money, that their metrics are telling them this is where the money is coming from, that these things will continue to get improved and people will continue to be happy because you know what? I like playing those parts of the game too. And the game making money means that I will continue to have a Foundry. Like I've said, it's the same today as it was yesterday, and every once in a while a cool new little thing appears. So,
Yeah,
as
I mean,
long as the
as
game,
long as the game stays strong as a whole, we're still going to have the Foundry.
Yeah, and
right,
the devs
exactly.
If the game dies, the Foundry dies.
have to
Bingo.
answer to a higher power, and I know a lot of people like to look directly at PWE, but even within Cryptic, they have to answer to making sure that the overall health and sustainability of the game continues, which means that they have to put priority on those things that will make the overall game sustainable and improve it.
So here's I like what Pax just said in the chat room, and I think it is a feeling that I notice a lot of people have actually is we're not people aren't necessarily thinking that Cryptic hates the Foundry or that the devs hate the Foundry or whatever. People think that they just don't care, that they're totally apathetic towards it, and I think it's a misconception. But I think it's a very easy misconception to come under.
Yeah.
And that's that, and that's like, I mean, we have heard Taco Fangs, say, like, the reason he doesn't want to stay late when his work day is done, he wants to go home and do, I can totally understand that,
And
like,
he has actually
can't.
been putting in some extra time in for us to help us with this door issue on ESD.
And
which I think we ought to be very appreciative of. And, if anybody sees him in game or on Twitter or anything, everybody thank him for doing that.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it comes down to, I don't think they're actually apathetic. I don't think they actually don't care. I think
It's just that they don't.
I think they just
they got
have
a lot
lives.
scheduled.
Yeah, they have bigger priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing that Taco said to me one time was, or maybe not to me, but or on the forums or something, he said, I'd like to do some of that stuff, but it's not on the schedule.
Right.
And he's not in charge of making the schedule. And so I think, if any of us have any, aspirations towards influencing someone to get Foundry stuff on the schedule, Taco's not the one to go to. And honestly, I'm not always convinced that Geko is the one to go to. I think,
I don't think he is. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Steven D'Angelo's at Star Trek Las Vegas, so I can corner him or something.
As the Foundry authors descend.
I'll say this from just the personality he has on the forums and on Twitter and what. Taco just seems like someone I would have a blast gaming with. I could care less whether he's a dev or not.
Yeah.
Well, actually, for the Star Trek convention thing, you'll wear a T-shirt about that. So you walk up to him.
I am actually planning, to get some T-shirts that say something like Foundry author and my name on the back of it, or my handle on the back of it, and see if anybody comes up to me and says, "Oh wow, you made that mission."
That would be awesome.
I'm very curious to see if that happens.
So, do we want to talk about the interview?
At least the pieces of it that pertain to anything new. Yeah.
Okay. So
honestly, I've not listened to it, so this is
okay. Well, then I'm
sort of hearing it for the first time.
So I'll kind of go through a summary then. So it took till part 2 to actually get to the Foundry question, and you knew it was coming because Tony, aka Kinetic Impulsor, was the one interviewing, and he, of course, is both a longtime Foundry proponent and a author as well. So basically, Geko reiterated that the Foundry currently isn't a major focus right now. He did say, however, that Cryptic is continuing to work on bug fixes as well as small features. In fact, Cryptic just got done devoting a large chunk of Foundry development time to crushing a new exploit that had come up. And he kind of went on to bemoan the fact that when an exploit like this comes up and they have to crush it, that's development time that comes out of developing the Foundry. So the more time they have to spend on exploits, the less time they can spend on new development.
Yeah, which and by new development you mean adding cool things that people would actually like.
Adding cool things, getting bugs fixed, that sort of thing. Of course, the interesting thing, of course, of this interview was that Tony, being Tony, it kind of sparked a debate between Tony and Gecko about
Yeah,
whether
it
or
did.
not rewards should be removed entirely. And Gecko was on the side of absolutely
Don't.
not, because he thinks that that would only severely hurt the Foundry and reduce overall plays. And Tony was kind of making the argument that we're not getting plays now, anyways, and he kind of felt that really all it does is increase the instances of exploiters.
Okay. This is something that I went back and forth on actually as they were talking about it. And in theory and in spirit, I totally agree with Tony. We're not getting plays anyway.
I disagree with that.
The
We
rewards
are getting
are
plays.
some. Very, very few. The
Well,
things that are
let me-
getting
let-
a lot of plays, and this is where I think Gecko is coming from, is that if we take the rewards away, the things that are getting a lot of plays, which are, sadly a lot of grinders and things like that. But what happens there is that Cryptic are able to look at the people making the schedules and say, this is how many people are playing the Foundry. We need to figure out a new way to get investigate officer reports back into the game, which is, probably just a simple retool the rewards and put the mission back in. It's like, but it's because of the fact that we have players that they're able to even do something like that.
Yeah. But I mean, it's more than that. He actually was on record as saying that the exploiters make up a tiny minority of the overall people who play Founder missions.
And because I think they look at loot grinders as not an exploit.
Yeah, that may be true.
Which
But
in the spirit of technical language, I think I would agree with. I don't think those are exploits. I think they're.
I would argue even more so that it's not specifically grinders that are sucking up all the plays, but the featured episodes plus the top 50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
if
the
you're,
spotlights.
Once again, you come back to the search system.
It always comes back to that.
In the Shadow of Midas gets, it's not a huge one, but it gets a decent number of plays. And it's one of the few that's in the top 50. So I think it's a case of our problem isn't specifically the grinders. It's more of the grinders are really easy or something to blame. And it comes back to, and this is something we've all said over and over again, is we need to revamp the search system. And I'm really hoping that one of those small updates that, Gecko or Tumor Boy or Smirk or anyone who happens to be listening would be really great if getting that search revamped. Neverwinter just put out a number of search improvements specifically related to dealing with kind of these problems. And I think getting those ported over would be great. They're not complicated features. It's just a couple of UI changes and a little bit of a retooling. But I would kind of put that up as the number one thing that we could use from Neverwinter right now.
I think the issue is not that it gives rewards, which I guess it sounds like what Tony was arguing. The issue is still the search engine. It's not that the missions give dilithium. It's because people can't find the missions that they want to find. So it's a matter of finding the right solution. And I think, in my opinion, getting rid of rewards is not right.
Kirkvat looked through the top 50 on the Fed side, and he found out of 50 missions, 17 non-spotlight authors that you would consider story authors.
So
17 out of 50, and I was not on that list as well.
Part of the issue is, and I know what school of thought Gecko comes from on this, is that people can get overwhelmed with choice. There is kind of this whole psychological school of thought about people like getting overwhelmed by too much choice and then not making a choice, or just taking the first thing in a giant list. Now, that's the part of our issue is that I can hear in his interviews how much Geko believes in that. He's, so much so that he was talking about, we have too many PvE queues, and I think the issue is not that we have too many of anything. I think the issue is that we don't have enough interface or enough separation of that.
Yeah, it's not well
choice.
organized.
It's not well organized, and there's not enough good separation of that choice. It's not that there's too much of anything. It really isn't. I mean, yeah, there may be a couple of thousand story missions out there, but I know enough of how to search, if I can find just those, or,
in one respect, he's absolutely right. I mean,
yeah, he is. There's
the interface, even for the Foundry, is horribly complicated and a pain to use. I think we need less options in Foundry search, not less missions, but an easier, more simplified way to get to those.
Yeah.
Which, as we've said many times, Captain Hunter has already put forward pretty much the exact thing we need.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to be one of those things that will require more development time, and it's something that they'll have to schedule. But
I mean, it's the same sort of
it
thing.
needs
I guess,
like a programmer and Thomas.
I keep every once in a while I kind of want to poke Thomas and say, "Hey, what would you do with this interface?" I don't think he'd actually take me up on it, but
it's the kind of thing that, you look at the PvE queues, and they have so many different kind of things you can earn in there. There should be maybe you open that up and then you get a choice of, this is what I'm looking to earn, rather than a list of everything.
And then it takes you to a list where you have maybe like 5 things
of only
of
those
all
things
of them.
that give you
Yeah.
that, right? And so the Foundry could be, what are you looking to do today? Are you looking to do a combat mission? Are you looking to do it? Yeah, like you said, Captain Hunter has shown us the way. So
I mean, this is not a new problem for Stowe, though, because you can see, my big beef is the powers window. Like, if you hit P and look at the powers window, it just throws everything you can do in there.
it's ridiculous.
And if you're looking for something, you're like, I don't know what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I don't care about my basic phaser beam. Of course I have a basic phaser beam.
Yeah.
I have a basic thing. I have a basic whatever with any weapon I use. I don't care. That's
one of the things that I've always wondered, why they give you the ability to slot that in your ship power tray at all. I mean, because that's what the weapon power tray is for.
I think the first step toward the big improvement, I'm looking at Miranda's power bar here in front of me, and Thomas made this change already, where all of my tactical powers are sitting there in red, and all of the few science powers that she runs around with I have in blue, and so that helps. But when I'm choosing those and what I want to put into my action bars, give me a little bit more separation, I guess. Yeah, you're right, Rogue.
Yeah, that was a good change, color coding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is one of those things that I'm sure Thomas is forever thinking about, is how to improve the user experience.
I think a lot of user experience,
he has
Foundry as well, is just one. It sounds weird, but putting one extra menu in for everything that has huge multiple choices like that is a good step. I think it really can be.
And it comes down to making it easier for a user to drill down in a meaningful way, versus that's how you break down large amounts of content.
Right. You don't break it down by getting rid of it.
Exactly. Anyway, so there was one other.
What else? Yeah.
As I say, there's one other interesting topic that came out of this, and in and amongst the debate about rewards in the Foundry, Geko actually said that if it was up to him, he actually wants to expand rewards. And I'm kind of secretly wondering if this the sudden return of the Foundry wrapper is not part of that. But basically, he said one of his ultimate goals is to actually make a Foundry reputation. Now, I should point out for anyone runs off is that this was entirely his speculative what if. This is not even on the schedule. This is not a currently planned feature. This is Gecko
Right.
just talking.
I think the most succinct way to put it is this is something the developers would like to do eventually.
Hmm.
This is something Gecko would
Well,
like to do eventually.
My standard response now to whenever it says, "Oh, a dev said this," my standard response is, "Yeah, they say a lot of things."
No, but I mean, it definitely. I know when on Twitter, interesting feelings. So let's kind of talk about it for a minute. Slightly.
Well, I'm going to say right off the bat that I don't think there should be a Foundry rep system.
Okay, for what reason?
Because I think not everything in the game has to be a rep system. I think we're getting towards the point where there's too many, to be honest.
Well,
I also
actually,
play.
I think that the reps could be pretty easily retooled so that it's not a matter of. Well, the big mistake people make with the reps is trying to do them all at once. That's the thing I don't really understand.
Well, I don't think people will be doing that so much anymore because they've limited the traits, the passive traits. I mean, for me, that was the last reason I did them, because I didn't care so much about passive traits. I wanted the gear, but I know a lot of people who absolutely that was like the thing that they grinded the rep for.
So I would say let's look at, in this case, why are the reputations there to begin with?
I think
They drive
largely,
people to content.
yeah, they drive people to content and to play content over and over again, and they provide a little bit more of a sure way to get gear than the random number drop system that they used to use,
So I would
which of course was
Also,
the old MMO standard.
What did people have to do at level 50 prior to the advent of the rep system?
SDFs.
Yeah,
Which
and
were
that
also
was
not
it.
there at launch. By the way.
Part of the one of the big things I think the rep system is there for is actually for the post 50 leveling experience.
It's lateral progression instead
End
of vertical.
game.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's there to give something for people to progress at. So the question I would ask is that something that the Foundry could benefit from or not?
In
Well,
my
I-
opinion,
you know,
it's.
Oh,
Go ahead,
Rob.
Drogan. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, I mean, I am, kind of opposed to the idea, but I say it isn't without its merits.
Okay.
It could certainly benefit us, but I think it will have the effect of driving people towards whatever the shortest Foundry mission they can possibly find is, and doing that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's not going to result in the kind of plays that we want to see.
And Gecko was very adamant that nothing like this would show up before they were much more confident about the security of the Foundry reward system.
I did like that statement.
Because I mean, yeah, Gecko is, and you could tell from his voice, is just as much frustrated with the exploiters as we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I even posted on the forums, "Hey exploiters, thanks for ruining for everybody."
So
Was this after 8 p.m.? I think.
Yes. Yes, Rogue has found out throughout the course of this week that as it gets later in the day, my tolerance for BS declines, and I become less of a tame Foundry author.
have to get Drogon into bed before 8 or he gets cranky.
Yes, pretty much. I have limited my interaction with the general forums as a result.
I was just going to say really quickly. I mean, we mentioned that Foundry rep in general is designed for people to play content over and over, and that to me that sounds exactly what we want with the Foundry is to get people to actually play it. Different missions. So, as far as go ahead.
I was gonna say I wanted to respond to the same thing in that I completely disagree with you, Rogue. It's exactly what we don't want people to do in the Foundry. The Foundry is full of thousands, if not tens of thousands of pieces of different content. There is no reason that just because something is spotlighted that someone can say, hey, once I know all of the right buttons to click in Hippiejohn's spotlight mission, I can get through it in 8 minutes and get that date and get that reward for it. There's no reason for that to be happening. We don't want to encourage that,
So,
actually.
what if the this reputation, you could only get credit for this reputation or marks or whatever the thing gives? What if you could only get it from a mission once? So that in order to progress through the system, you had to play a different mission every time.
So
I think that's heading in the right direction.
I mean, we're down to like the minutia of designing a reputation system, but I mean,
right, and I don't want a reputation system. I agree with Drogan.
But I mean,
it's taken me a while to agree with Drogan, but I do.
But I mean, let me point this out, because I mean, they could never do something like that in our normal reputation system because there isn't enough content. But the Foundry doesn't have that problem. The Foundry is literally a content machine that the devs don't have to do anything to get. I mean, what?
The issue is the way that they have the reputation system set up is that the progression through it comes by earning these marks that you get by doing some sort of a thing. Now, if you could only, this is just off the, just based on what I have seen over the last year with people that they've had to take time on these exploits. Some of the ones that were the obvious ones on like Earth Space Dock. If they make it so that you can only earn a thing, the reward from a mission once, and it's 10 marks. Somebody goes out and makes 40 missions that take them all of 10 or 15 minutes to finish, and they finish them all near the same time or whatever, and boom, they're earning it. It's just far too, the reputation system is extraordinarily exploitable if you put it into the Foundry. I think it's why I agree with Drogan here, but I don't think he's
so I think and I think there's some ways that we can accomplish those goals with some extra rewards that is not a rep system.
Okay.
I mean, you can offer extra rewards for the first time you play a mission without it have to be tied to a rep system. I always think that the Foundry ought to be the anti-grind. I mean, there's so many people in the forums who complain about grind. I mean, I think half of them are full of crap, but
I was going to say, they're all the same people who do the grind.
Yes, and I think they are full of crap, but, it doesn't change the fact that there's, always a huge cry of, oh my god, so much grind. And, I always want the Foundry to be not that. It needs to be the something else.
So, one of the things that I can't really seem to get past, and this is kind of an argument against a Foundry rep, is what in the world kind of rewards would you give for a Foundry rep?
I know what I would give, but
okay, I want to hear it.
So you would have to, in my mind, if there was a Foundry rep, there would have to be 2 rep tracks. There would have to be a track for being an author and a track for being a player, because the author does not necessarily want the player rewards, and the player rewards can be, now the rewards of each rep system are geared toward completing that content. So if any sort of gear that is geared toward completing Foundry content has to be fairly generic gear. So it would simply, in my mind, be some sort of probably phaser or disruptor based on whether it's a KDF or Fed mission. Just because that makes it easy. Mark 12 gear. And maybe a gear set like a weapon shield, weapon shield deflector combo or something that does some really minor, applicable to any scenario, any enemy. It's just a flat bonus. It's whatever gear they give the players have to be just something that helps them in general. Hey, I have more weapons power, yay, kind of thing. As far as authors go, it should be based around the things that authors are going to want are, you know what? I would love to get a bonus 4 slots just to build missions in and just to play with. So after I reach a certain plateau as an author in the rep system, maybe, I unlock 4 extra slots to play with or something. It can't be anything like you can't lock off costumes that you only get at a certain point unless maybe that
Unless it was an in-game costume.
right. Unless it was an in-game costume, or unless, as an author, it's one
That would
of those
encourage me to
costumes.
do it. That's for sure.
It would encourage exactly. So it
Well,
would
they
encourage
keep saying
you
they
to
don't
go
make
to
money
the
off costumes, so why not add costumes in as rewards for things?
So I would personally not do any of that through a rep system. I would just do a simple 3-tiered thing. Spotlight missions get that current reward that is the one that's offered for the Investigate Officer Report. Skill points, expertise, dilithium, and anything that would be a spotlight mission. I would take longer to decide what are spotlight missions, and I would put some minor only available once unique reward with each spotlight mission. So and I might even ask the community manager, attempt to get in touch with the authors and ask for a suggestion. Something like an Amanda Barkley holographic Doff who's a scientist or something, or in Rogue Enterprise's mission, a pause button or something, that who knows what it is, what they can come up with.
I like the idea
Something that respawns you and resets the entire mission.
right. But that's
It's a first cause then effect device.
That's what I would do with the spotlight missions. Any qualifying mission that's not a spotlight mission just gets the Investigate Officer reports. They don't have any special thing that's associated with doing them. Then I would do for all other missions, I wouldn't care what they were. I would give them a baseline of 2,000 skill points and like 1,700 expertise or something like that. That gives every mission in the Foundry, including grinders, a reason to play them. That's what I would do. And I think it makes story missions even a little bit more, more appealing to play, which is kind of what I'm aiming for when I think about that.
The thing with that, though, is that grinders still wouldn't do it simply because their take on rewards is always, how can I get the reward I want for the least amount of effort?
Of course.
Yeah, and in fairness, those people are never going to go away.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's no getting around that.
It's the same line of thinking where you'd have people in Diablo 2 trying to decide which boss gives the best loot, and then gear their character so that they can take that boss out in the shortest amount of time possible for the loot. Then reset the map and do it again.
Pax Federatica said that one thing idea he had for like if they have campaign support is at the end of the campaign you award the player an author designed accolade. Doesn't actually give them anything tangible. It's just a cool accolade.
Yeah, still kind of got to be a little bit careful with that, because then people would start creating campaigns because they want like some weird or possibly offensive.
No.
Yeah, obviously.
Right there, Pax just put something in the chat room. For it could be as simple as every one of the spotlight missions has an accolade or a title that you can get one time by playing them.
I don't think he was quite listening. I was just saying that.
Oh, sorry.
But he said, for Ghosts of War, he'd love to have the accolade when you complete it. Ghostbuster.
There you go.
I think we're talking about a significant development resource allocation.
Well, yeah, it would
something
be.
like that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I mean, think about how many spotlights there are, and they all need a individualized reward of some kind.
Yeah, that's a lot of oversight, more so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, as you were saying in the chat room, Rogue, we're none of us professional systems designers, I assume.
That we know of. Dun, dun, dun.
I don't actually know what Greendragoon does for a living.
I'm a media developer.
Media developer.
I design
okay.
LARPs and RPGs, but
it's got some programming to it. It's a lot of like illustration, 3D,
Mhm.
that sort of thing.
Essentially,
why
what I do is content production. So that's what I know about,
Um,
and supervising people, which I'm horrible at.
At least you supervise adults. I supervise like
They don't
teenagers.
act like
It's-
adults sometimes. But that's a story for another time. I don't know. Okay, so anything else come out of that interview that you thought was interesting?
let me double check my notes here.
I was slightly disappointed with the sort one of the impressions I got from what people are saying is that it's almost like Gecko's letting the exploiters hijack the agenda, and maybe there's no way around that. But
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he doesn't have a choice in that matter. I mean, and
because I mean, he told us a long time ago that we're having a dozen or so features for around season 9, and now we're being told that that's not going to happen because we have to quash
yeah, well,
exploits.
we got a new EP since then.
Also,
We've
that
got
There was a
we-
huge
we've
shift
got
in
a new
priorities
EP.
when D'Angelo took over.
they say a lot of things as well.
Yeah, I mean,
I know priority shifts. I mean, our location today, as we were talking about in the pre-show, is a good indicator of that. Is that there's essentially nothing on Andoria, but there's this map here. So why did they make this map in the first place? Well, maybe they had something planned for it. Priority
it's
shifted.
pretty obvious. I mean, the warning comes up as soon as you walk out that this is supposed to be
Actually,
an open PvP map.
Well, another thing to consider is that in the Sirius sector block, there's a ground map for every single system. All of them. The ones that are for Federation member worlds are, regular social zones, such as Andoria. Granted, they're boring social zones in many cases, but they're there. But the ones that aren't for member worlds, there's something you can go there and do. Like, you can go to Wolf
the
359 and stare at that monument to the epic fail. But all of them have something you can do with them at some point in time. I mean, like the old vestigial Risa map, which, you walk around on a beach and that is literally the only thing you can possibly do there.
Obviously, they're getting around to adding some things to do on some of these now. Like Risa, they've expanded. Although they've expanded that with a completely new map, ignoring their old map that they had.
Yeah, but the old map wasn't very good, so they had every reason to make a new map.
Well, it's true.
Well,
I mean, we do know that
also,
their quality has gone up exponentially since
it's important
launch.
to remember that when you beam down to Risa, it gives you a choice of which map you want to beam down to.
Oh, the only reason that the old map is still there is because of the Foundry.
True, but
because it has Foundry doors, yeah.
Which, I mean, I get the strong impression that the new map was designed to have the doors ported over. Because, I mean, they have a lot of the same features right down to that ocean cave. So I'm wondering if at some point they might.
But as we're finding out, I mean, porting Foundry doors over to a new map isn't necessarily an easy process.
True.
Also, the cave does actually have a use because one of the new Risa accolades is for finding Pavel when he's hiding inside the cave.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, my point is that I think eventually they'll integrate, take all the Foundry stuff over to the new map.
They might.
And who knows? Maybe this new ESD is a good test bed for that.
Well, obviously we got new summer stuff coming up, so maybe they'll do that around the summer when that starts opening up.
Who knows?
I don't know.
So-
Didn't they
so
say
here's
something about that last year and have the forums tell them, no, please don't do it. We like it the way it is, or something like that.
Well, they ignore the forums, and thank God for that.
Yeah.
Maybe there can be-
thought about some of these social zones and some of these things like the Wolf 359 Memorial. This game was like one of the things that happened is that this game is pretty much built on the same like base engine more or less as Champions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they used their in-house engine they developed,
That's what I
assume,
thought.
for
They used
Champions.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting experience that I can, say from, my own experience playing both games, and that is people in Star Trek Online care more about the going and fighting things and the pew pew, and I mean you can find RP in STO, but it's not half as prevalent as it is in Champions, where there are less cool places to do it on on the
That's funny.
maps.
Well, that's because there's less pew pew to do in Champions.
Right. So there's now, but is that possible? Like when they were first creating this, like Andoria, maybe they literally created Andoria as a place for people that wanted to role play as Andorian characters to come and hang out. Maybe they had some like distant plan about maybe we'll do something else there, but the reason that it's here is literally they were in kind of a Champions mindset when they were creating some of these things. Like from a role playing perspective, it's
that kind of
cool to fly into the graveyard of Wolf 359.
That kind of reminds me of something Taco said earlier this week, I think, on the forums, when somebody piped up, and they weren't the first ones to pipe up and say this, but they were like, I want to go into the shuttle bay on ESD. Why is it locked off? Why is it there if I can't go into it? And Taco said, well, not everything, essentially not everything has to have a use. Some of it is there to look pretty or to make things look like it's a bigger universe that we're in. To sell the size of it without you actually needing to go there.
I mean, Wolf 359
I still want to be able to go to the ground map for the vendor system.
But it's okay to have some things in game that don't have a specific use. I
agree.
I mean, I like Andoria. There's nothing to do here, but I like it.
Except to role play, if that's something that you're doing in the Star Trek universe.
So I wonder, you mentioned that there's more role players in Champions right now.
Absolutely,
right?
I think so.
You're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Of course, they're probably more noticeable because they're all clustered into Club Debris.
No,
and
not necessarily.
And I wonder if they're more noticeable because there's less other players. Because we know that, I mean, it's not deserted, but we know that their player base is not huge. Yeah. So I wonder if you were to compare.
My experience actually hasn't.
Go ahead.
I was going to say my experience has been more with people actually saying, hey, I'm part of a role-playing guild. It's pretty big here, role-playing. If it's something you're interested in, give me a chat. I've had that happen 3 or 4 times in Champions.
So I think
here you just get drive-by fleet invites because they're hoping you'll dump some stuff into their buckets.
Exactly.
The thing about Champions also is that it is an extremely open MMO. I mean, you can literally make almost any kind of character from any kind of genre you want, whether fantasy, sci-fi, or anything in between. In fact, the Champions, comes from the Champions RPG books, and which again is meant to be a very open, generic interpretation.
It was based on the hero system, I think.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it lends itself much more to whatever people want, which makes it a very ideal RP environment.
Yeah.
True. So, but what I was getting at is wonder how you compare the ratio of our peers to everybody else in a different point in its life cycle, where it was there was a lot more development going on, where there's a bigger player base. Like where Stowe is right now.
Yeah, I wasn't really playing Champions at that point, so.
Because Stowe is in a very different place in its life cycle.
True.
Yeah.
And obviously, MMO life cycles, I kind of say about 10 years ish.
If you're lucky.
Because a lot of them that didn't last. Because some of them nobody really knows.
Right.
WoW has obviously gone more than 10 years now, I think.
Yeah.
Or is it in its 10th year or something like that?
Was it in Diablo 2's life when Blizzard decided to scrap it in favor of having the dev team work on WoW?
Hard to say. I wasn't paying attention back that far. But I know City of Heroes lasted about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Matrix Online was, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5.
Didn't that get scrapped in beta?
No, it was operating for a long time. It was another one that had very, very small player base.
Really?
And I didn't think it was very good, to be perfectly honest, when I played it in beta.
That was well before my time.
Yeah.
It was before my time playing MMOs.
Guild Wars, the original Guild Wars is still going.
Yeah.
And it predated WoW.
Yeah, I don't think there's
not by a lot.
a particularly set time, and it's based on a lot of factors.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's definitely a slow decline to MMOs.
Yeah.
That kind of has to be fought against, and the more development goes into
It starts
the slower
about 3
the
months.
decline.
It starts about 3 months after launch. Well, you just wait about 3 months, and we'll start seeing about news stories about Elder Scrolls Online losing subs, bleeding by the barrelful.
Is
I
it-
give them 6
Can they just
months.
copy paste everything that was written about SWTOR?
SWTOR and Star Trek Online, and the list goes on.
Yeah, but that's the funny thing about STO is I would say it's far better now than it was.
It's better after it went free to play. Frankly, I think it saved it.
I think it's
There are a
been
couple
better
of games
since
that
Legacy of
actually
Romulus.
Mm-hmm.
Legacy of Romulus was the first outward sign I could say, oh hey look, this game is actually improving.
And it's obviously making money otherwise, because that was a huge undertaking to do
Yeah.
that.
And
Well,
right now they're working
honestly,
on expansion
I
too.
think that's a trend actually started in season 7, because that's when you saw more and more people everywhere.
Well, there was definitely a ramp up following the free to pay conversion, but
Oh yeah.
but yeah,
It took
that
some
was
time.
Of course, I was one of those people where I played, I was one of the statistic where I played Star Trek Online very heavily for a little time after launch, and then I quit and dropped my sub. What I came back for was the Foundry. I saw that and I was like, oh, damn, that is awesome. I am coming back for that.
I don't know. I kind of stuck with it because I've always kind of kept an RP element of my characters. I mean, like Hippie does, where
See, I didn't actually have that back then. I didn't do that. I just done that lately, and it's been awesome. That's why I have so many. I mean, when I first played the game, I had 2 characters. I had a Federation and a Klingon.
So have
I used to look at Terry and say, "Oh my God, she has 12 characters. That's insane."
yeah, well, wait till you get to her costume slots.
Well, and she's got even more than I have now. So, so let's see. We've got our usual. We've kind of done a lot of our discussion topics up front tonight, but I thought we'd talk about what we've been working on, because I've actually been working really heavily on writing, and I actually finished a script on Friday.
Woohoo!
It's that script that I've talked about a little bit, introducing the character of Major Recall,
Yay!
who of course comes from Face of the Enemy, the TNG show, where she is actually in that episode. They say that she's been killed, and they draft Counselor Troy to take her place. Now, my theory is that it's the Unificationists. They're not professional spies. They botched the assassination job. Recall wakes up sometime later in a hospital, has to go on the run, because of course the Tal Shiar think that she did all that stuff that Counselor Troy did.
What if they sent the town to do it, and he screwed it up?
Hey, there you go. But in any case, she survives to 2409 or 2410, as we're in now, and we'll start wreaking havoc. So that'll be the first mission I work on. I've got some of the maps already built or partially built already. So, and now the script is done. So it's a really good place to be in when we come back from downtime.
When you say script, is that? I mean, what do you mean by script? Like all your dialogue too?
Well, when I say script, I have sort of several phases I go through. First is outlining, where I figure out what maps I'm going to need, and then I start scripting. And what I do is I script very linearly, so just going straight through all the dialogue I'm going to need. Usually I go back in later and add branching dialogue if I get time, or if I'm not lazy enough to
That's
forget to do it.
That's an
Or
interesting
decide not
approach
to do it.
that is kind of similar to how I do dialogue trees.
Because it's like I
one.
kind of need to know where the story is going to go,
I just do
and then
one
I can add some
branch.
branching.
Yeah, I just do one branch and then go back and add the others.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. The branches, I mean, unless there's planned branches that affect the story, the minor branches won't get added in, and as will be one of the last things I do.
Yeah.
Well, I know Hippie said you wasn't getting much done this week because there's a lot of birthday celebrations. But I don't know, any of you guys using the downtime to your advantage?
I did actually use the downtime to my advantage a little bit. Thinking about how to use the Foundry to emulate the classic structure of the shows, where you had that like quick 5 or 10 minute teaser at the beginning, and then Act 1, Act 2, what is it, like a 4-act show kind of thing normally in the classic episodes and in next gen. Like, is there a way to use the Foundry to give that feeling of going, reaching this point and having it be like tense for a moment and then like coming back up on that point or what have you? I think it's possible. It's just something I want to talk to people about. It's something I've been really working on with some of my own scripts this week, is like trying to find places to separate them and stuff. So
Most of my work has been related to testing.
Which is quite useful.
Yeah, I mean, and just making sure that, I mean, now with the republish going so fast, I've been through a couple of the tests of the mission to make sure nothing broke. Thankfully, nothing seems to have broken, which is kind of like a first. Usually something breaks.
And I should say that when I went into the editor on Tribble and was testing around things, I didn't see any of the bugs that we've encountered previously. I didn't see any long load times. I didn't see objectives, reach markers, objectives on the minimap away from where the marker actually is. No white objects. So they haven't made any of the previous mistakes. Obviously, it could introduce a new bug that I didn't notice.
Man, what's up with this? Like, new bugs, fast republish. I mean, it's like I don't even know this downtime.
I like that we're really surprised it's going well. We're like, what? Nothing's broken?
It's insane.
You would think they've learned from things that have happened before and gotten better at doing this.
Well, I would think that every time they fix a bug, it stays fixed.
As a general rule, the Foundry downtimes have actually gotten smaller as they've gone along.
Generally,
there's been a few flukes in the process, but yeah, generally. I think the last one was one of the longer ones, actually, because there was a couple of bugs that they caught while the republish was going on. If I recall correctly.
Also, there was the whole thing of adding all the boss stuff, which you wouldn't think it would change much, but
We are getting a few new little things here and there, like the faces and complexions are in. Any of the NPCs that come from Earth Space Dock are actually now going to be wearing the Odyssey uniform. That has been updated.
Also, if you have Undine in your mission, the Undine were rebalanced.
Yeah.
They will respawn, or they will spawn exactly like they are in the rest of the game.
Yeah.
There is actually one interesting glitch I noticed with the way is that certain people who are, contacts you talk to outside ESD now use ESD backgrounds. I think when they were changing the vendors to use the new ESD backgrounds, they accidentally changed the wrong ones. I mean, two I can think of off the top of my head that I've noticed are The tailor at Starfleet Academy has an ESD background, and the security officer at Deep Space Nine.
Well, it's one of those
That's
curious.
that's something
It's
I
always been that way. I think
that's something I
all the
wish we
security
could.
Officers all had the old ESD background, and they probably all have the new one too.
That's something I wish we had control over in the Foundry, was the background of.
Yeah, that would be nice. Even if it was just a selection of.
Yeah, just a
existing
little
ones.
check, a checkbox or something, like, or a selection
drop-down
thing,
list.
like we, drop down list like we have for many other things.
So, touching on the, you mentioned about the new uniforms, and obviously a bunch of the NPCs in the Foundry got updated as well as a result. But if they do intend to make the Odyssey uniform the standard uniform, we really need it in the Foundry.
Yes, we do.
Hmm.
No more excuses.
I think we should all tweet that to anyone we can.
Don't be mean about it.
Schedule maker.
Just now is the time. This needs to be done.
It's one uniform. Just do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
You have time for a second Romulan Republic uniforms.
So let's see. I mean, so the other thing we wanted to do tonight was we kind of have a tradition of reviewing the new featured episode whenever there is one, kind of using the same formats that we would and things to look for as we would for Foundry missions. So we have the new featured episode. What is it?
Surface tension.
Surface tension.
You played it, right?
Yes, I did. I just momentarily had a brain lapse. So, surface tension. Dragoon, if you want to throw up the spoiler warning on our stream that you created earlier.
Spoiler.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Giant
Spoiler.
spoilers.
Because we've all played it, all five of us here. And so if you haven't played it and you don't want to be spoiled, tune out now.
We won't be offended.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'll just kind of let you guys go with it and
Well, let's start off
see
with
where we
an
start.
overview of what actually happens in the mission. So we start off picking up where we left off in the last one, which I totally love the last time on video at the beginning. And it was
which is skippable, by the way.
skippable.
There were some people on the forums I saw complaining about, why am I being forced to watch this thing? Press escape.
Everything is skippable now.
Everything is
Did they
skippable
post
with
that
escape.
outside the game at first, like the last time?
Yeah, they posted it up earlier, and then they.
So I
Yeah,
had
on
watched
YouTube
it too.
or
I was just
something.
like, nope, skip that.
I don't know if they'll keep it when they integrate it into the mission journal properly, just because people coming through will have just played the last one.
I suspect they will.
But it was kind of a cool thing because it was very reminiscent
Yeah, I
back
liked
of the
it.
series. So it starts off with the conference in the Solanae Dyson Sphere. You get to beam down to the Solanae Dyson Sphere surface. I assume that room was somewhere on the surface. And
Yeah,
have a
that was my impression
So
as well.
we start off with the conference to discuss the Undyne and what to do with the Solanae Dyson Sphere. What did everybody think of this? Because it's one of the few non-combat portions of the mission.
I liked it. I liked talking to everybody and seeing who was there. And there were some new characters that were introduced, including a Xindi Federation representative, which I thought was cool. Because I liked Xindi.
Yeah, I've actually had a Xindi in part 2.
I mean, the guy himself was a little annoying, but his
You
voice.
hear Smirk on the live streams call him the Xindi Mark Twain.
I have to say that I did get the urge to tell Barrett and that Bajoran lady that he was arguing with and throw them in the brig just for being obnoxious.
I don't know if that conference has a break.
That's good, though, when it gets that sort of reaction out of you. When it gets any reaction out of you, it's good.
True. And you're not meant to like him.
True.
I thought the scene was brilliantly done. Especially, have you guys played it with, at least 2 of the factions?
I've only done
Yeah,
with
see,
one so
I have
far.
not. I've only done one. Or
Okay,
Ron,
so
one.
it interested me when I did it with a Federation character that, I through the whole bit that I had to do, I didn't talk to this Ferengi. He just happened to be there. And then when I had to go tell the delegates to go have their seats, I walk up to this Ferengi and he's like, "Of course, I'll be going to my seat now." And I was like, wow, that's a really minor character to have paid a voice actor to say that line. And then when I played it on my KDF character, that Ferengi actually was part of what I had to do in the room and is a fully voiced character. So,
Oh, nice.
To
I wonder
me,
if it's Taco.
that made the whole room feel very full of story that I wasn't going to get unless I played it a couple of times from a couple of different viewpoints. And that's something I hadn't felt in the featured episodes before. And the first scene established that for me.
Well, this definitely seems like they're very much continuing to experiment with replayability.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of some of the stuff we saw in the first, in the last featured episode. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I am excited that they are kind of differentiating it because I mean, especially as past a certain point, all of the the factions share stories. The more that can be done to kind of differentiate, even if it's the same story but has a different twist to it, depending on which faction is, just makes playing different factions all the more rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So of course, the conference begins, and then the Ferengi offers to buy the sphere, which I thought was great.
Mm-hmm.
It was hilarious, and it was definitely true to the standard Ferengi ethos.
Yeah, but I
Yep.
mean, it was a great addition because it was so very Star Trek, and at the same time that the fact that the alert comes up just as he's trying to make his bid for the sphere is like, what's that?
Which, of course, is just the kind of contrived coincidence that Star Trek thrives on.
Yeah, so I mean,
In all
it
fiction, really.
it really it adds to the whole cinematic feel of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean overall that's one of the highlights of this mission is just so I mean if everything up till now was featured episodes, this was the featured movie.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Um, it's half of a movie.
Okay, which half?
Um, in terms of length, I mean.
Oh, I obviously
It,
it's not as long as a movie, but
yeah,
It's just in the tone, in this
in
sort
the
of
tone and in
epic
their
scope.
approach, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but in that it kind of I mean if you when you take the Star Trek episodes versus the movies try to take it up a notch
Oh, and
from
it
the
felt
show.
like the back half of a movie, by the way. To answer that question.
Well, one thing that someone commented on is that this is the sort of story that Cryptic used to give us over a 5 or 6 episode series. I mean, this is kind of like taking the 2800 series, cutting out the boring parts, and then making it a single episode.
Which is kind of what a movie does.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think we have had a series here because I mean, Sphere of Influence, Step Between the Stars, and this are sort of a trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And depending on what the next one does or what they do with
It
the
might be
expansion.
a quadrilogy.
Yeah.
So maybe we are still getting featured episode series. It's just they're not doing a
Yeah,
weekly
they're
thing.
they're not over a 5-week period. They're over a 12-month period.
That's
So here's something, since we're talking about that, is different players are going to come down on either side of this, I think, and that is when you look at the old featured episode series, the 5 episodes right up to the 2800, the quality of each individual episode was not even remotely in the ballpark of what we're seeing now. And I've heard people say, well, we're only getting 1 per season now, and look at how good what we're getting is. that
When,
once per
when
season.
people say that, the first thing that comes into my mind is to ask them how much they like the quality of Spin the Wheel.
Exactly. It's
or
that
of Bajor,
was
which everyone hated.
that was a quote unquote featured episode once upon a time. If you compare that to Surface Tension, people come down on either side. They either want lots of content and it doesn't have to be, super voice acted and all this, great stuff, or they appreciate all of this work and how incredibly rich the story was. It's
The cool,
And
the
see,
cool
I don't
thing about
actually
this,
mind either approach.
I'm sorry. The cool thing about I mean, if you look at like this as like a season 9 delivery package, it kind of hits all of those things in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like you get like the really awesome story mission with the well produced content, and you have like all of the stuff you can do, that's not story and loop focused and all that kind of stuff. So
I mean, because one comparison that I did earlier was comparing the featured episode here with the Breen FE series. One of the comments that I made was that you could replicate about 90% of the Breen FE series. I mean, 90% of the entire Breen FE series in a Foundry mission.
Well,
I mean, especially that
yeah,
one where the only thing you do is you wander around inside of the ferry ship and talk to people.
But the things that they're doing now are not things that we can do in the Foundry.
Oh yeah, and that's what makes the new mission so awesome, is that they do all sorts of amazingly cool looking things. I mean, because
Which, of course, many of which I wish I could do.
undoubtedly.
Apparently, doing cutscenes takes a really long time.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that.
I've heard that the cutscenes in this one do strange things on rare occasions, such as
I've seen those reports too. I got lucky, I guess.
there's one person who apparently did the cutscene as their player character instead of as their ship. Then there's
the running
one.
man. Yeah, I saw that. That was hilarious.
Then there's how apparently one of the Federation ships is occasionally it uses the Excalibur model instead of a real Federation ship design that's actually used in the game.
Yeah, I noticed that the first time I played. I was like, "What is that ship?" And it does look like the old Perpetual Excalibur design,
Which is weird. I mean, I know the one that in the in those enemy groups in sector space, that when you first warp in, the destroyed Excalibur is there. But other than that, I wasn't aware that it was something that was even in the game files.
Me neither. And I mean,
Actually,
it may be something that shows up later in the C store or something. Who knows?
I don't know. It's a fungal ship.
That's just it, though. Is that Cryptic does actually seem to have certain vestigial remnants of those old Perpetual designs in the game. I mean, because
Some of them, and I've never really been clear on whether they have the rights to use all of that.
I think they do.
They think they have to, because I mean, like I said, I mean, there was that. As much as it was just a little inside joke, there was still that.
To my understanding, they basically bought the license from Perpetual, and
Picked it up when they lost it.
Because every so often you see people pipe up on the forums, they found some old piece of concept art and say, why don't we have this? And the standard response is, well, because that's a Perpetual design, we didn't use it. And I can't remember if it's because they can't use it or because they didn't.
I want to say
Perpetual's concept of Starfleet Academy was grandiose, but other than that, kind of lame.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the Perpetual designs, I'm personally, especially the starships, I was kind of with the feeling that a lot of their designs were kind of fungly. I mean, the Excalibur you're talking about, I always kind of like to refer to as the carpet scooter.
Yeah, dogs scooting across the carpet.
Yeah.
But we sort of wandered away from it. And
Yeah.
we should get back to the episode. We should get back to the episode. So I mean,
Okay, so
wrapping up the plot. Obviously, you go and foil the Undine attack on Earth Space Dock, which is very, very heavily damaged, which explains why we're now in a new section of Earth Space Dock.
So what did you think of that whole battle? And
I absolutely loved that sequence. My only problem with it is, which has been my problem and actually Hippie's problem with the last few episodes, is why the hell am I beaming down alone?
Yeah, I know why.
Why don't I have like a huge army of security officers or my
yeah,
bridge officers?
I know why they do it from an out of character reason. I don't know that there's a good reason in character.
Yeah, I mean, because honestly, even with the whole thing, the whole situation said, it really doesn't make sense for the captain to beam down. It does.
So
But,
Well, now we're talking about a bigger problem with.
So this is
like
the first
everything.
time it didn't bother me.
Really?
Yep. It
You
didn't.
you went on like quite a lot about the last one for this.
Kestrel won this time. She defeated me with her invisible logic in this one. The fight that I had to go through to get to Earth Space Dock was probably one of the most amazingly well-designed combats that I've ever fought in this game. And it left me with the impression that we were not done. Even when the Bordesque is saying, we're coming back from the other side of the planet, and it's like, are you ready to beam down? I had the feeling that my ship is still needed out there on rescue operations, picking off, Undine that are still out there. My crew was needed on my ship, and I was pulling a Captain Kirk, Captain Picard moment, like from the movies, and saying, I'll beam down and take care of this kind of thing.
Or like when Riker fights the Riemann guy on board the Enterprise.
Bingo.
But Riker took a security team with him.
But
And Worf.
And Worf.
for all the good that Worf does.
Yeah, for this time, I really felt like my ship and the crew that is, that I trust to run that ship was needed elsewhere, and I was okay with not having security officers beam down with me. I don't know why.
You have enough officers for them to spare a security team.
I know. And I don't know why it worked for me this time, and it might just be the fact that the writing and the design of the mission was very cinematic, and it was very epic, and it was very sweeping, and it brought me right into it, and it just felt right to do at that moment in time. So
no, I mean, I think it was that the mission was just so heavily engrossing that it didn't stand out for you. I mean, you were so invested in the mission at that point that the fact that you weren't beaming down with the security team, it just wasn't a noticeable fact for you.
Yep.
It would have been solved by one line of dialogue, like, "Oh no, living quarter section is under attack. We'll take most of our guys to do that." And then
exactly.
Captain can go do
that's something that I did in a Foundry mission. Actually, I had a thing where you beam down to a facility that's under attack, and you beam down multiple security teams. You lead one of them. You communicate with the others that you never ever see. You just communicate with them over the comm.
Yeah, I mean,
and they report into you ever so often. Yeah.
Funny, I've actually done the reverse and used that kind of thing to give an excuse to have extra security that you send off, but are still around.
But in any case, and I destroyed ESD as one of my favorite maps that they've got now in any of their missions. I know people have compared it to Mass Effect. I've seen that on the forums, and actually I think I quite agree, and I don't mind things like that being things being influenced.
I want the destroyed ESD map, but not the inside, the outside, because we cannot replicate anything even remotely similar in the Foundry.
That would be cool.
I want both. Let's have it all.
There is one Foundry map that's a space station that looks like a real Federation space station that has whole shot in it. But that's the Starbase 39 model.
That's a tricky map to work with.
So let's see. After you fight them off ESD, then you figure out their real plan is to assault Kronos. And so you go there and fight them off there with, I may say, a very annoying Klingon flagship captain. I thought she was annoying.
Corin is supposed to be annoying. If she wasn't annoying, she wouldn't be.
That's her character trait.
Yeah, she's definitely an impatient one, that Klingon.
Mm-hmm. And really just not ready to believe the best in any of you that are trying to help her.
And this is kind of a trait that's persisted from the past, because, I mean, there was often times when she would jump to, I mean, back in, like, Sphere of Influence, she would jump to a conclusion, and Worf would have to talk us like, look, don't just dismiss it because it isn't the most direct, obvious path.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say she's a bad character. I just said I find her, if I met that person in real life, I would find them annoying.
So, of course, the real star of this last scene, though, was Sean.
Yeah.
And
I finally felt like he was someone I could actually respect.
I felt like I finally felt like there's a captain of an Enterprise.
yeah, I mean, kind of had a Kirk moment there.
Yeah, I felt like he had a Picard moment, actually.
Movie Picard.
The crash.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean,
action hero Picard.
I see more Kirk.
Okay, so I guess we're talking about two separate scenes. Him flying the Aquarius into the Planet Killer wasn't what made me feel like we had a captain of an Enterprise, but that scene was cool as hell.
that scene actually reminded me of Sisko flying the Defiant into the wormhole so that he could fight the Dominion fleet inside the wormhole. That's what that scene reminded me of.
Yeah, a little bit. So what scene were you thinking of, Hippie, then?
When it was all said and done, and during it actually was before, not all said and done. It's when everybody was talking, in the conference. This is, what's happened. The Undine are here, et cetera, et cetera. And they're saying, well, why didn't Starfleet listen to us, and all of this, and with the moment that made me feel like Sean was an Enterprise captain was when he was like, we were wrong. Okay?
Yeah.
We were wrong.
He basically said he basically told Sugihara to shut up and quit pontificating.
Yeah, it was that was the moment I felt like, yeah, that's what that's why they've been
building him up towards that, and it shows that he has sort of, he is a captain of the Enterprise. He has the kind of stature in the Federation to be able to cut off an ambassador and say, shut up, dude, we were wrong.
No, and basically he was speaking for the Federation at that point.
Yeah.
And he knew full well what he was doing and what needed to be done.
Yeah. So yeah, that was for me the moment that Sean was our captain of the Enterprise.
That was good. I really liked seeing everybody together at that little end party. Worf was there. All the flagship captains were there. It was great, I thought.
I loved it.
They even worked in some little Worf voiceover, even though you'd think that all of his voiceover has been done. They probably found a little scrap, something like, this could work for a party.
Yeah, I think part of that was from his the dialogue that he says on Kronos. If you talk about
and
Kronos.
we know they work many months in advance. So I mean, it's possible that they knew they'd have something like this and say, okay, we'll say this line back when they were recording all that stuff.
Well, I really kind of think that they didn't write this one episode at a time. I'm pretty sure that this whole series was planned out at one
probably.
time, and when they did that, when they started doing the voice acting stuff, they're like, okay, so what do we want Worf to say?
And if you'll notice, they kind of kept it somewhat generic. He didn't make any mentions to specific things that happened in this episode, just a general.
Right.
They may not have had like the entire thing built or scripted or anything like that by that time. They just knew where they wanted to go.
But we do know that they have been planning the end of the Klingon Federation War for some time now.
Yeah.
They have been hinting at this for like literally almost years.
Which I was very happy to see, because I think that's one of the things there in Star Trek is it's like real life. There are conflicts, and at the end of them you make peace.
It's a funny thing. as you're talking to all the people in the Great Hall, there's this one. Can't recall who it was. Either it was I can't remember who said it, but it was basically someone that said this looks like this is the first steps towards a lasting peace between the Federation and Klingons. And the way they phrased it totally make it sound like, yeah, this may lead to peace, but nothing's going to change, kind of a line that MMOs often do to kind of explain why things haven't changed. And I totally thought it was going
because
to be...
of course you're still going to be fighting Klingons.
Well, I totally thought it was going to be a cop-out, but then after that scene happens next, they totally go back and say, yep, war is over. So, I mean, despite the fact that I knew this was coming, it still surprised me. Just to watch them actually end the war.
Well, you know, it does. I mean, what was it? Somebody on the forum says, I didn't want the war to end. I'm still fighting Klingons. Or I said, well, you know, anything that happens in the content that was made before this mission happens in the timeline before this mission.
Right.
And is still happening in the timeline before this mission anytime you play it.
Yeah.
That has to be how it works.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
There's no
if you
other
go
way.
back and
There's
play an
no other
episode,
way.
there's a certain amount of time-space discontinuity that occurs.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go the route of altering everything in the game to suit your new time frame. I mean, World of Warcraft did this with Cataclysm. They redid the entire game world. Almost every zone got some sort of change, and they moved up the timeline. So now anything you do in that game happens in the Cataclysm time frame or later.
Yeah. But I mean,
It's like a massive undertaking, though.
Oh yeah, it was huge. It was a huge deal.
Think of the budget that must have taken, like in terms of.
Well, it's
the kind
Blizzard
that only
at
WoW, the
World of
kind that only
Warcraft,
WoW can dump into their game.
The kind that only WoW can do.
But I mean, that said, the thing more so than anything, this mission made me feel like I had just impacted the universe. That things had changed. This which gave the mission such weight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
We were there. We were a part of it.
We advanced the timeline. Things altered. The political landscape has changed.
And it's 2410 now.
Yeah.
Huzzah!
I
Happy
love
New
the
Year.
way they did it. They did that perfectly too, I think. I didn't need some big huzzah, some big party saying it's 2410. I was quite happy to just see like the tag at the beginning of the mission. That was to me just about perfect.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I mean that is why I mean for me, I mean, going into the Undying, it just kind of story like this is what makes the rest of the game worth playing, because I mean, you can throw in all the reputation or adventure zones or whatnot you want, but if it doesn't have some meaning behind it, it's stuff to do. It's not impacting anything. I mean, for me, going into this, I'm now fighting the Undying because all of this has happened, and this is
Those cues have meaning.
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay,
At least
so
a little bit.
we're running out of time here for our 2-hour time frame. So I'm just going to go around and final verdicts for this mission. Greendragoon?
Loved it, and the surprise ending at the end was complete awesome.
Mhm.
I did not expect you to do that.
Yeah.
That was a fun use of explosion.
Mark, what's your final verdict on this mission?
Oh, that was awesome. It really was. There is one way it could possibly have become more awesome, but I suspect we'll end up with that in the next episode anyway.
Hippiejohn.
For the mission, I would say 3 words. I loved it. As far as a final thought on it, it also changed my entire experience of the game once I realized that this mission made me realize that transwarp is magic, and the whole game changed for me. So,
Well, this was a fact that I completely missed on the first couple of playthroughs, but apparently the gate, they changed the target of the gate. You're not going back to the Solanae Dyson sphere when you go through it. You're going to Earth.
yeah. So.
Rouge Enterprise, final verdict.
I really liked it. The one thing I will say, though, as a closing comment is, you know how, like, a lot of early Foundry missions are either A, like, rescue the lost ship, or B, save Earth space dock from invaders? this was like a really well done version of B. Like the Foundry authors had like development resources. That mission is what all those missions would look like.
Yeah, but when Cryptic does it, it means something.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah,
just
I
having
love
that having that conversation on the forums yesterday.
The problem with the Foundry author doing it is that they don't have the authority to make canon changes.
Of course.
So they're basically like a book saying, "Oh, Earth Day Space Dock was blown up." No, it wasn't. It's still in the show. But I mean, if Cryptic does it,
Well,
they're official.
The point I made is that it doesn't have to be quote official for it to have happened to your character. You just have to use your imagination a little.
Yeah.
Yep.
And not everything has to advance the storyline. I mean, before Deep Space Nine, Star Trek was basically made up of one-off stories that affected nothing. Everything was the exact status quo at the beginning of the next episode.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with something that doesn't advance the overall storyline.
And not every episode of Deep Space Nine advanced the story.
But
Well, I mean, there are some things that do change a little bit. I mean, like the 2800 series. You now see that. What was the guy's name? Aaron. You see Aaron's Jem'Hadar dreadnought parked in space near Deep Space Nine now.
But certainly nothing on this scale where we have like an entire new Earth space dock map for a story reason.
True.
All right,
But okay, so my final verdict is I don't think it quite got to a 5-star for me if we were talking about it in Foundry mission terms, mostly because there were some minor quibbles with it. Kind of like the why am I beaming down alone? That really kind of took me out of the mission the first time I played it. But as you all know, I absolutely love 4-star missions. Because I've played so many of them, and I think the game's in a great position. I have really enjoyed season 9, and will continue to be enjoying it.
I was gonna say, who here is excited for expansion 2? Coming off of this.
That's me.
Yeah,
I'm extremely curious to see what they're going to do for an expansion that doesn't involve a new faction. Or
that's really sort of the one thing that they've said they're not doing is a new faction.
It means that all of that content's going to be for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the next expansion can be described in 3 words. I will put a 1 penny bet on the fact that it's going to be called the Delta Quadrant or something very similar. So
I agree. As long as if I get somehow a playable Krenim, I'm on board with that.
That's the biggest thing that I've concluded is that whatever it is, it's going to redraw the galactic map.
So, wasn't the Krenim the one to win the which alien race from the Delta Quadrant would you like to see?
The temporal weapon ship.
And I'm just hoping that they don't put them in as enemies. I think they ought to put them in as some sort of ally.
I think whatever expansion 2 will do will kind of wrap up what's going on with the Undyne. Like the last, or like the Step Between the Stars kind of did with the Voth. But I think, so I think we'll move into a different alien race. As all the while, maybe get a little bit more hints about the redacted.
So, couple things to say as a closing. Obviously, go play the revamped Borg missions, because there's even some more story stuff in there that informs what happens in the featured episode, and they take place in the timeline before the featured episode.
Yeah, it definitely works as a nice lead-in.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that non-Undyne Cooper isn't nearly as wimpy.
we were speculating today is where exactly he was turned into an Undine.
Oh, it's pretty obvious. When you pick him up in the escape pod, you're picking up Undyne Cooper.
Yeah.
I mean, they all but came out and said it.
And then the other thing is one of a friend of the show, you might say, Brandon Felkser, formerly Brandflakes of PWE has announced his new job. He's working at Red 5 Studios as the community manager for Firefall.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting game. It's kind of a third-person open-world shooter. I was playing it a little bit. It's in beta at the moment.
I played it a while back when it was earlier in beta. It's actually a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Reminded me a bit of, like, I don't know, Defiance or something like that. So, but we wish him good luck, and everybody, go give him a try, because obviously they have good taste in community managers, so maybe they've got a good game.
Do we have enough time for contact info?
Go right ahead.
All right. If you guys want to get a hold of us, you can email us at foundryroundtable@live.com. Send in your review request, suggestions for the show. Feel free to tell us how you think we're doing, or something that you think we should discuss. You can also find us on Twitter at Foundry Roundtab. No LE on the end there, because Twitter wouldn't fit it. You can reach Drogan at Drogan1701. You can reach Hippiejohn at Hippie_JOHN. And you can reach me at Greendragoon. 2 O's in there.
Can you reach Rogue Enterprise on Twitter anywhere?
You can.
You can, at Rogue Enterprise, I believe.
I think he locks down his account, so he's got to approve you.
Yeah. You have to ask to follow me.
Ah, interesting.
A very exclusive club, those rogue followers.
Well, with his 50,000 plays, he's something of a celebrity and has to control his fan base.
You have to regulate those cyberstalkers.
Yes.
Lives in the Twitter equivalent of a gated community.
As a final thing, as we're saying goodbye, I want to give Rogue a minute to just real quick tell us about, he's got a new couple of missions out.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. So, I was going to talk about it earlier, but yeah. So I mean, right before downtime, I released 2 parts of a 3-part series called Orders. I think you can even play them right now because the republishing is going so quickly. So, yeah. I mean, play them, give it a shot. Let me know what you think. You can let me know on my lockdown Twitter. Does that reply me? Yeah, let me know what you think. They both qualify now, thankfully.
Fantastic. So what are the titles exactly? Is it like Orders Part 1?
So it's Orders Part 1 and Orders Part 2. And they're Fed missions, any level.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So-
And of
Yeah,
course,
well,
also, I don't think it's actually up at the moment, but also I finished my challenge mission, which is out. Obviously, I think we will be renewing the challenge voting period when everything comes back up. So you can wait to give it a try until afterwards, I would say.
Well, I actually did tweaks to my mission to Vat's Legacy and republished it right before the Foundry maintenance.
And I added that to my Romulan list of Romulan missions, which I should plug in the Foundry mission forum. I have a list of Romulan themed missions for Romulan captains, or also we're looking for any mission that is written generically enough that Romulan captains can play it and not be taken out of character. So if you have one, please let me know there, and I will add you to the original post.
All right, awesome.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, everybody, and have a good day.
Huzzah!
All right. Good night, good afternoon, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.